Okay, greetings everyone again. This is Don Slickty, and I want to finish up this week my series Brakes and Blinkers. How I believe God, like when you drive an automobile, you signal your intentions through brakes and blinkers, okay, on a vehicle, and makes everything better and smoother for driving safety, right? And so I'm doing a series about, or an overview, a macro overview of things that I believe God has indicated through, especially Christian prophets mostly. And I think it can help us to understand the times, to pray more effectively, and to have more hope, okay, in our future. And so I am today going to be on the fourth topic, which is the Mafia Purge. Okay, the first topic was the United States of America being an anointed, appointed, destined nation for God's purposes, not better than others, just a different calling and a different destiny than other nations. Number two was the opposition to God on planet Earth is Satan or Lucifer, and he uses bodies, he uses people who allow him to, in degrees or in full possession, oppose the works of God on our world and in our world. Number three was on Trump's anointing and calling. I don't think I said this in the video, but I believe he's God's point man. Okay, like on a basketball team, he's the point guard, the point man, and it's like a David or a Cyrus in the Old Testament for achieving God's purposes in our time. Okay, and I think that's unfolding before our eyes. So today I want to hit on the topic of the media purge and some potential accelerators of that mafia purge. I mean, and some possible accelerators of that. Okay, so I want to start with uh, a whiteboard that I mentioned in the last video. How Dr. Shiba, who is a super smart guy, okay, he doesn't come at things, his worldview is not Christian that I know about. He's run for office on the East Coast somewhere. But I've seen him, and he came up with this illustration. Real quick, I want to explain it. It leads into this mafia purge that I want to talk about today, or house cleaning. Maybe house cleaning is a cleaner word, but house cleaning that I believe we are entering. But Dr. Shiva talked about the 1% of the 1% of the 1% who control the world's affairs. And I believe that's true. The E stands for elites. Okay, the elites influence because they have money, power, control in that manner. The elites control the C's. That's the corporations. All the businesses, all those companies that the large corporations have great control over the finances of the world, the direction of the world, so forth. So this 1% has control over the corporations. And by the way, our country is a corporation. It's one of the things that has happened to our republic is we went from a representative constitutional republic under God to a corporate democracy or a corpocracy. Okay. And so these corporations have influence through puppets, especially politician puppets. According to my sources that I've read, that it's possible that 70% of our Congress has been either bribed or blackmailed in a way that they're and are corrupt to a degree that they're puppets of the elites, the corporations. So then you have the puppets. The puppets can be in business too, like your who owns the media sources that you watch, etc. But those puppets really influence the 8 billion people and toward destruction. And he lists about 12 things, ways that our society is being destroyed from within, okay, through this process. So I wanted to show you that to be an introduction. An introduction to number four, which I call Mafia Purge and Possible Accelerators. So let's take a look at this. The premise is this, is that our world is being controlled and manipulated and oppressed, and it needs a house cleaning from elites, and it needs a house cleaning. It needs a purge. It needs a removal of these elite, these mafia types. They're corrupt. They're evil. They're treasonous. They're frequently traffickers because that's part of the bribery and the blackmail system that they're involved in. Now, prophets, many prophets, The Q posts, I don't know if you've ever read them, watched them. There's about 5,000. I've read over half of them through the last 6 or 7 years and 8 years. And the Q posts reveal this situation of these elite mafia types. So, if you've seen any mafia movie over the years, this is how the mafia does it. They're in control of an area, a city, and they control the police, they control the judges, the court systems, etc. You understand. And even if you're in the organization, if you get out of line, you get kneecapped, right? Or worse. And so prophets and Q posts and truthers have been saying this for over a decade now, that there needs to be a purge of the corrupt, evil, behind the scenes elite leadership. And I believe that is exactly true. I wanted to recommend to you, there's a video series called The Fall of the Cabal that you can go on YouTube. I believe you just put it in there, you can find it. Another one is called Out of Shadows. Now, I watched both of these back, I think, in about 2018 or 19, and began to expose me to the nefarious controls that elite people have over, as we saw with the Dr. Sheba whiteboard, they have control over they're the 1%. They control the corporations, which controls the puppets, which controls the 8 billion population, and so that causes great destruction in our country. And the elite's goal has been uh, made public through their agendas, Agenda 2030, to reduce the Earth's population, from 8 billion down to less than even 1 billion, 500 million. You may have remembered there were some guide stones in Georgia that got blew up. Who did that? I don't know, but they did. But those guide stones reflected the agenda of these elites, okay? And somebody blew them up, thank God. Okay, so those are two video series that you can go and get more, because people are going to call it what I'm saying a conspiracy theory. Okay, I understand. And yet, if you just look at the reality of what's happened in our lives in my generation since 1950s till now, how the elites are controlling world affairs, controlling wars, controlling our currencies, controlling the health system, controlling our education system in ways that I don't want, and in ways that I've been alerted to. So these videos that I'm recommending, The Fall of the Cabal or Out of Shadows, will begin to give you instruction. If you want to discard it as conspiracy theories, fine, but at least go watch them to see if things like 9/11 or election fraud occurred, or the assassination of Kennedy, or the Warren Commission. Were we told the truth about any of these matters? I don't believe we were. Okay. If we don't remove, my premise here on this session is, if we don't remove, or if God doesn't remove, or if Trump doesn't remove in some way, shape, or form these evildoers, we have no hope of change in our country. In fact, we're going to decline more and more and more. So let me get some pop up here. And so that's the premise of this section here on the elite mafia. Now, I've mentioned before the 7 mountains of influence: family, government, church, business, economics, medical. I kind of think there's like 8 or 9, but entertainment. These different mountains of influence, as some call it, I believe are all enraptured or captured by these elite mafia types. That chart of Dr. Shiva, by the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Okay. And they, like the mafia, control these for their purposes, which I believe, if you go back to my second video on Satan and what he's doing behind the scenes to lie to the world, to lie to the population, to lie to you personally, to get you to go against what God said is good and true and righteous and just. And that's what's happening in our world in a large way. It's happening worldwide. Through these elites, through secret societies, through Masons, through corporations, through political puppets, through Jesuits, through judges, through rogue judges, through governors, etc., etc. And folks, I believe this is pervasive. This is pervasive in our culture, in our land, and around the world. So I don't believe we can really proceed with real hope and real encouragement um, without removing, or if we want to rebuild society, Isaiah 61 talks about renew, rebuild, restore. And I don't believe that can be fulfilled unless there's the removal of these bad guys, these elites. You know, it's almost like in your body, sometimes you have to throw up, right? And once you throw up, you feel better and like you can go on now because the bad stuff was accumulated there and you had to throw it up, right? Well, in the same way, I've remodeled lots of hundreds. I mean, lots of houses, maybe 100 to 200 of them over my career. And you know, the first thing you got to do is demolition. You got to clean out the old before you install the new bathrooms, the new kitchen cabinets, etc. And I believe it's a good illustration for what our country needs is the removal, the purge of these evil mafia type evildoers who are controlling our world in a way that is not pleasing to God. Okay? Now, let's give an interpretation of this premise that this exists this way, it is having this impact. What's the interpretation or application? Well, here's maybe what could happen to facilitate this house cleaning. It's this. Number one, sealed indictments. I don't know if you knew, but there's a federal website, I don't remember the name of it right now, that has an account of the sealed indictments. A sealed indictment is when the I'm not sure which department, but it may be the Attorney General of the United States, the Justice Department likely. They put out a website, the number of sealed indictments. And a sealed indictment is when they have the goods on someone, but for some reason they haven't brought it to court yet. And they haven't revealed who's in the indictment. My understanding, I've been aware of this for like 8 or 9 or 10 years, is that there's like several hundred thousands of sealed indictments. The Q Post indicated, they said, they have it all. Those who are leading the charge to restore our republic, those who are leading the charge to drain our swamp, they have all the data, all the information. It's almost like Doge started to investigate and found all this financial information. Well, before that, I believe there were persons who were doing investigations, and they have it all. In other words, they have all the goods on these bad guys. Okay, so that's an interesting thought. Sealed indictments, 600,000 plus of them. The Q posts. One of the famous Qisms of the 5,000 posts, and it was said several times, was this: the military is the only way. I believe we've been under uh, what's called the war manual. Okay, our founding fathers, our leadership of our country set up the military is underneath the civilian leadership and the executive authority of president, or the president at the time, and now President Trump. But if things become so corrupt, and if things become influenced by outsiders, remember all the oaths that these federal people take, including our president and the army and so forth, is to uphold our Constitution against all threats, either foreign or domestic, right? Well, I believe that's happened, and they have that data, they have that proof, if you will, they have that evidence, and the only way to see this happen in America was go through the military. So the Q Post said the military is the only way. Now that hasn't happened yet in a public way that the public knows about. I believe it's been happening. It's possible President Trump was even the commander in chief during the Biden administration. Now, you got to do your own research on that, but I believe there's evidence for that very thing. So the Q Post said the military is the only way to save our country and our republic. And one of the other things that the Q Post and other Christian prophets have been saying is they're waiting for an emergency broadcast system announcement. You know, your phone starts buzzing. And I believe when that happens I think it's a God appointed proper time, the military is going to intervene and interject itself, not to take over the country, not a coup, but a legal intervention. Because enemies, foreign and domestic, are controlling our systems, controlling our money, even have controlled our military, controlled our wars, controlled the medical system, spraying chemicals into our skies, poisoning our food and our water, etc. All those conspiratorial things, I believe, have been happening, but foreign entities have interfered in our elections, and there's going to be an intervention in an EBS at some point. I believe that's coming. Okay, that's been prophesied, okay, by non-Christians and truthers, and by Christian prophets, and by the Q posts. So I believe during that time, there's going to be a re-education of America and the roundup of those who have not been rounded up to date. Okay, now here's another one, a big one. What could accelerate this, you guys? Because see, this is so pervasive in our culture, where I believe our political parties, not all the members, but I believe our political parties are part and parcel of the real problem, that they're looking out for their partisan politics more than they are our country. And we're getting snookered by the media and the news outlets to believe their narratives. Well, here's an alternative. I grew up as an evangelical pastor and served, that was my career for 33 years, an evangelical pastor. And I believed in a rapture of Christians, that someday in the end time scenario that I was taught, that at some point things are going to get worse and worse and worse, doom and gloom, we say, and rapture soon. And that Christians were going to be taken up. There was going to be a 7-year tribulation period where all hell breaks loose, if you will, until Christ returns for a millennial reign. Okay, now, well, most evangelical Christians were taught that eschatology, as they call it, okay, that's about the end times. Well, I don't believe that anymore. I thought it had a detrimental effect on the churches and the Christians because they didn't involve themselves in the different mountains of influence in our world, because they were waiting to be rescued and expecting things to get worse and worse. It's not a healthy mindset, in my opinion. What's come up in the last few years, last 4 years that I'm aware of, is some Christians have discerned from different scriptures that that timeline that had been taught us maybe probably isn't correct, and that something called the great and terrible day of the Lord, where God removes those evildoers, God removes those persons who have and evil spirits who have mixed with human beings. Back in Genesis, they were called Nephilim. They were angelic spirits who could manifest as men, and they impregnated the women, and the offspring were called Nephilim. Okay, so it's this mixing of DNAs, and eventually God destroyed the world because He said every intention of their hearts is evil. Well, I believe that's been going on even in our time frame. Okay, it's come back to haunt us. And so some Christians see, like in the book of Joel, especially, if you want to read a scriptural justification for this, if you can put aside your dispensational timeline and maybe be open to a different view of things, the reverse rapture, as some call it, Isaiah 61, which is a favorite chapter of mine, talks about the day of vengeance of our God. And the great and terrible day of the Lord is a grapes of wrath time, where people are going to be brought into the valley of decision. And I believe that the pervasive corruption and control that they have over all the mountains of influence on our world, the only way out of it, I think, is this interpretation of Scripture, which is that there's going to be a great and terrible day of the Lord, not where God takes out the Christians, but where God actually takes out the Nephilim, the mixed breeds, and the evildoers. Evil people, evildoers, are controlling the world for Satan's purposes. Okay, that was the second video, Satan and his goal. And I believe that's coming up. Now, that's new for me. Do I believe that's absolutely true? Well, I don't know that for sure, but I believed about the rapture for 30 some years. And I don't believe that's true at all anymore. Okay, so it's an alternative, yes, but I believe it's a legitimate one. And if you can get out of the box of timeline that you've been trained in, maybe you can begin to accept a different interpretation of verses that you fit into that box that you were told about. Okay, So now that's pretty heavy. I find it interesting that President Trump is rededicating America on May 17th of this year, and 1 week from now, a rededication of America as one nation under God. Folks, this is a big deal. The fact that Donald Trump, a business billionaire, politician, womanizer, or whatever you want to call him for his past, is leading this. And I don't think he's doing it for votes, because he doesn't need it for votes. He needs true and just elections, and he would get in. Okay. But he's leading this charge because I think he believes in it, that it's like our founding fathers, it's the core belief of our founding fathers that faith and morality, or religion and morality, are keys to sustaining our liberties. And we've lost our liberties, and our unalienable rights have been radically violated. And the American public is blind to it. The political parties are blind to it. Good Christians and pastors are blind to it. That's what has unfolded. Nonetheless, God has said he's going to rescue us. He's going to rebirth America, but I believe he's got to remove he's got a demo, he's got to remove and purge the evildoers, or we have no chance of a reformation through natural elections, that type of thing. So that's what I think. This is really an important one. It's heavy. Do your research, because one of the algorithms of our social media can be good or bad. If you're into bad things like the P word, porn and so forth, then you're going to get all kinds of the algorithms sending information your way. That's not good for you. But if you look up things about prophets, if you look up things about the deep state, if you look up things about those kinds of matters, then you'll get those posts, and you can maybe get educated out of the thinking that is blinding you to what's going on. So I'm out of town, and I'm out of time, and but I believe a day, God's day of vengeance, God's day of vindication, may not be where many of you Christians thought it was going to be, way down the road during the millennium or after the millennium. Folks, it could be now. It may be the only way for us to go into a millennium and sustain it without falling back into the same sins we have right now. So that's it. A little bit controversial, or a lot of bit controversial, maybe really different. Do your research. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, I believe you can get them opened by God, and he'll lead you, guide you, and show you. Thanks for watching.